Hey there, it's Tracy Kiernan, and this tutorial we are going to learn how to paint a cowboy snowman with acrylics on a 9x12 canvas. So you can do this on any canvas size. Actually, I just happened to grab the 9x12, and I'm going to go over brushes and colors. So I like to use the Princeton Velvet Touch brushes. This is the 3/4 flat, the number 8 long round, and the number 4 round brush. You can get all of these in a pack of brushes and then a toothbrush to splatter little fine snow dots in the sky. And there are 9 colors for this painting. So I am using the Liquitex Basics acrylics. We'll need Cad Red Deep, Cad Orange Hue, Cad Yellow Light Hue, Hooker's Green Hue Permanent, Prussian Blue, Mars Black, raw Sienna, titanium white, and raw umber. If you don't have Prussian blue, you can use any dark blue like a phthalo blue. And of course, you can use whatever colors you have available. Let's go ahead and get started. So I have my 9x12 canvas placed in a vertical format, and I'm going to load my paint palette with 3 different colors. So I'm going to paint the background of this first, which consists of mostly sky. In fact, pretty much the entire background is sky. So this is kind of a dark blue gradient to a light blue, and it's got a yellow kind of glow along the horizon, and the horizon just happens to be at the bottom of this painting. So we're going to be blending blue to yellow in this. And I'm going to start by loading my 3/4 flat brush in water and then grab the Prussian Blue. Prussian Blue is a very, very dark blue. I'm going to add just a little bit of water in there to kind of thin it down. My paint, when it came out of the tube, was kind of thick, kind of an older tube. So the paint got a little bit thicker, which is why I added just a little bit more water in there. You may not have the same problem, so you may not need to add more water. But this background needs to be relatively thin. So you can see right away how dark that blue is, and I'm already starting to blend white into this to lighten that blue up. So we want to create a very simple gradient, and that's just basically left and right paint strokes of color that's blending from dark to light. And when I blend, I'm loading my color in the white, and I'm starting below the area that I want to blend. So I always start my color below and then brush it left and right, work that paint, bring it left to right several times to brush that color in, and then bring that up into the color, and it blends with the color above it. So as you're working your way down, you're adding more and more white to your brush. You may notice that you'll get some dark streaks in there, and I like to call that color variation. I think that's okay. You don't have to blend it perfectly. It doesn't have to blend all the way, and yours is going to look different from mine. Sometimes instead of left and right, I like to do this textured thing in the sky. So I'm actually taking my brush now and doing angled paint strokes to blend that. It gives that sky a little bit more texture. So I went down about 3/4 of the way, about 2/3 of the way down the canvas. And add a little bit more dark up here just to make sure that the sky is a little bit extra dark at the top. I'm going to rinse my brush. So this is going to be a challenge because we're going to blend blue to yellow, and we're going to try to not get it to be too green, because blue and yellow mixed together will make green, and I don't really want green in my sky, although we'll end up with a little green anyway. So what I'm doing here is getting extra white down here so that it's much, much lighter. In order to blend to this yellow, we want to make sure we have a nice, very, very light colored base. If you need to even get some more titanium white on there, get this Prussian blue is such a strong color. It's hard to get it all the way off the brush. But I'm going to take my yellow and white and kind of mix those 2 colors together. I'm going to start at the very, very bottom. Now we know in the finished version this is going to be snow down here, but that's okay. We're going to take this on the bottom, and we're going to gently blend this up into that very, very light area We just don't want to over blend it too much. And you can see we're kind of getting a green glow, but we don't want it to be too green. So just very gently blend that yellow in there to get it to be a very soft, light yellow glow. And so pretty much the sky takes up the entire canvas. Our snow is going to cover just a little bit towards the bottom. So the yellow glow goes up to about the halfway point in the sky, and it sort of just disappears into the rest of that blue. And that is it for the background. I'm going to rinse my brush and set it to the side, and I'm going to get my toothbrush. So you don't have to wait for the background to dry to do this. And I like to dip my finger in the water and add that to the toothbrush and then use my finger to apply the paint. I find that helps with the consistency, but you may want to experiment for yourself. You just want to test it to make sure it's not too drippy and not too thick. And you'll mostly see the fine little white dots on the darker parts. It doesn't show up as much over the lighter parts. So when you're done with your background, you are going to wait for this to dry before going on to the next step. So when it's dry, load your paint palette with the color Titanium White, and I'm going to use my 3/4 flat. We're going to paint the snow that's kind of pretty much the snow that's on the bottom of this, and it's where our snowman is going to be hanging out. And the height really is maybe an inch, inch and a half high. You can go higher if you want, just kind of an estimate. So I'm just kind of painting this whole area solid white. Mine is actually blending a little bit with that yellow on the bottom that didn't dry all the way, and that's actually okay. We can go back and add another layer. And you can do like a smooth line, or you can make it very, very bumpy. So the area kind of at its highest point is really like an inch and a half, maybe 2 inches high. And then get a little bit of that Prussian blue, and on the bottom of your snowy area, just kind of gently blend in that darker blue on the bottom. You want to do this before the white dries, and you only need a little bit because remember that Prussian blue is a very strong color. And just gently kind of angled flip-flop paint strokes, blend that up into the white, and that's going to make your snow area a little bit more shadowy on the bottom and give your snow area some depth. And then right here, I'm loading my brush back into some white, and I'm just going to do a little bit more thicker white kind of texture up here at the top. Maybe blend that back down into the blue, but I don't want to over blend it. When you're done with this step, you'll want to let this dry, and our next step in this is going to be drawing our cowboy snowman. So get that whole area, especially on the bottom where we just painted, everything needs to be dry. I'm going to use a regular drawing pencil to draw the snowman, and this snowman is on the left side of the canvas, so we're not centered, we're over here on the left. And I am just going to start out on the bottom, and I'm going to draw his large circle. The bottom of this circle goes to about the halfway part of this snowy area, so it doesn't touch the bottom of the canvas. It's about halfway, maybe about a half an inch from the bottom edge of the canvas. So it is a relatively large circle, maybe 4 inches in diameter, 4 to 5 inches. And I like to just kind of sketch this as a whole circle. And then my second middle circle is overlapping, slightly overlapping that bottom circle. So each circle is getting smaller. And then I'm going to do another circle. So this is the head, and that one is also overlapping. You want to make sure each of your circles is slightly overlapping. So my snowman, look at where it is. It's maybe 3/4 or 2/3 of the way up the canvas. I still have a generous amount of space above him for that cowboy hat, and even above that cowboy hat, there's going to be more space above that. So from the bottom circle to the top of the top circle. It is about 7 inches high. Next, I'm going to draw his little bandana scarf. So this comes down from the bottom of the circle, it goes to a point and back up. It's going to overlap part of that circle, that part of that very, very top circle. So look at where it kind of overlaps. Then I'm going to do the little carrot nose. So our snowman is facing towards the right. So the carrot is not going to be center on that circle. It's pushed more towards the right. I'm actually redoing this to maybe make it kind of like same spot, but kind of tilting down at an angle a little bit, because I'm trying to make it so the snowman is kind of looking down. So the fun thing about snowmen when we paint and draw them is we can make the carrot go the direction we want it to look. So since he's kind of looking down, I made the carrot kind of angled down. So the eyes, look at the position of them. They are kind of lined up in the same size, but they are pushed towards the right. And then the mouth starts kind of in the middle of that circle and then goes down and then goes to where that carrot nose is. Next, we're going to draw the cowboy hat. And I erased kind of the top opening of the head. You don't have to erase that, but it does kind of help. So I'm going to start with kind of the bottom part of the hat. So the brim is going to overlap part of the top of the head. That line is very close to the top of the eyes. It's going to curve around for the side roll of the hat and goes up. So that curve there on the right is the side of the hat. Let's do the middle part of the hat. Do kind of like a cylinder shape and a oval at the top for the crown. And then this part curves back around. And this part right here is going to fold up and overlap. So this curves around and this part rolls up. And then overlaps that middle crown part of the hat, that cylinder shape, and then it goes down and it attaches over here on the right. Then I'm erasing this part because of that roll that's folding up and overlapping that middle part of the hat. And I'm just going over my lines and making them darker. Since it was sketch-like, I'm kind of defining that shape a little bit more. And if it looks messy, that's okay. We can adjust this as we're painting it in. I'm going to draw the vest next. So this part over here on the left is going to be a little larger than on the right because he's kind of turned towards the right. So this part's a little bit smaller. So I just drew two kind of shapes for the vest going down in the middle part of that circle. And we can draw his arm. So his arm over here on the left is just kind of hanging down. This one too, also both just kind of hanging down. If you want to change the position of the arms, you can. The arm on the right is going to be holding a rope, but for now we don't really have to draw that rope. Just going back over this bottom line a little bit so it's a little bit darker. And our buttons are going to be over here towards the right because he's twisted towards the right. Make that scarf, make sure that bandana scarf is overlapping that bottom part of that top circle. Then I'm going to do the little country post over here on the right. So just a simple little kind of rectangle shape. It's kind of up here on a hill, the way the snow is painted. I'm going to make the top of that post go kind of at an angle, so like an oval shape. Although this is going to later be covered with snow anyway, the very top of that post. It's going to go down. And then two wires attached to the fence post, country fence post. And we don't see any other posts in this. It could be that maybe the snowman is in front of that other post, or it's just one really long set of wires. But I did two. If you want to do more than two, you can. And those are kind of drooping down and connected and all rustic looking. And now we are going to paint our snowman in. I am actually going to start with the cowboy hat and then pretty much just kind of work my way down the snowman. But let's load our palette with the color raw sienna. We'll also need raw umber, which is basically light brown and dark brown. And we will be using the number 4 round brush. So you'll also need titanium white. If you don't have extra white on your palette, you may want to load a little bit more white as well. And let's start by loading our round brush in the light brown. I'm going to start at this front kind of roll part of the hat, this part that's kind of overlapping that middle crown. And I'm basically just going to outline this entire shape with that light brown. Take this on the outside, outline all of that. And I'm going to take this part that goes around and basically outline that part. And again, more light brown. I'm going to take this and that's going to go around and that line, kind of making sure that they're sort of connecting, even though the brim of that hat is still kind of, it's rounded anyway. Without rinsing the brush, grab white. So you have light brown and white on your brush. So this part I'm going to paint mixing brown and white together. It's going to make a very light, bright brown. So this roll part is all that light color. I'm going to take that. Maybe on the edge of right here is light, but then it's going to get very shadowy and dark here. So just kind of leave that blank. Grab your dark brown without rinsing, and right here, that part is dark and shadowy. And that's going to blend with that lighter part. I'm blending this dark part all the way to the kind of the edge of that, but leaving that edge of that kind of light. And same thing is happening over here. It's darker and shadowy right here. Taking that dark color. I'm going to add more of that light brown in here and kind of blend lighter brown over here towards the right. So already we have some, we're playing with the brown, making parts of the hat dark, parts of it light to kind of give it that 3-dimensional look. And over here, I'm going to do that middle kind of crown part of the hat. I have mostly of that light brown on my brush right now. So I'm just kind of outlining the shape. But when we fill it in, these strokes have to go in a kind of curved direction because it's kind of a cylinder shape. I'm going to grab the white, and at the top of this crown kind of area, I'm going to outline that oval shape, so that's light. Take that white and kind of outline the far right part of that, blend it in so it's lighter over here on the right side. And taking that white, kind of outline this edge. And this edge right here. I'll take some of this lighter color and kind of blend this in, but the far left of this needs to stay darker and shadowy, so I don't want to blend in too much light here. I want to make sure that that dark shadowy part that makes it look like it's kind of the inside sort of dent area of that curvy part of the hat. And then up here, the top of the crown, this part right here needs to be dark inside of that oval. So I added more dark color in there. This part is light. We can outline this hat later, like with black, to help things kind of stand out. So if you painted this and you're thinking, oh no, all the browns pretty much look the same, it just all clumped together, and that's okay. We can always just outline loosely with black, and that'll help get parts of that to stand out better. Yeah, just a little bit more darkness over here at the top. The next thing we're going to do is rinse our number 4 round brush and start painting in the snowman, the snowballs. And so we need some fresh titanium white that hasn't been mixed with anything, and we're just going to take our round brush and just start filling this in. So starting at the top circle. So I am going to paint over the carrot and the eyes, and that's okay. We can add that later. I still see part of the carrot that's sticking out, so I kind of know where the placement of that was. So I'm just painting the circle in. I like to outline the shape first and just kind of fill it in with kind of circular paint strokes. You can do like textured paint strokes if you want. I am, for this second circle, I am going to paint around the scarf bandana and the vest. I don't want to lose the placement of those objects, so I'm just going to kind of paint this in a way to where I can still see where that bandana and the vest are. And then the bottom circle has nothing really in the way. I'm just going to outline that shape and fill it in. There was a little yellow paint that got into this bottom piece, but that's totally okay. We are going to blend shadowing into our snowballs next, and we want to do this before the white dries. So I'm going to load my paint palette with the color Neutral Gray. Neutral Gray was not shown in the beginning of this painting because there's 10 colors instead of 9. If you don't want to use Neutral Gray, you can actually just mix a little bit of black to make gray. And I'm going to take my round brush, and on the left side, I want to blend this gray in to create shadowing. There's also shadowing under his hat. So I want to take this gray and kind of blend this in towards the top part, and that top part just under the hat gets to be gray as well. And then we're doing kind of these rounded sort of textured paint strokes to get that to blend. You may find that you have to go back with white and then blend that further. I'm going to load my paint palette with some more white so that I can do that. So I loaded more white onto my palette. Without rinsing the brush, I'm going to grab the white and I'm going to use this. So there's still a little bit of gray on my brush, but I'm going to use this to kind of blend that gray down. Blend this gray kind of inwards. So we have our shadow part on the left and the top and the center bottom right part of the circles are left white. I'm going to do the same thing over here with my gray. So this kind of bottom part and this over here on the left is going to be gray and shadowy. And that is going to be dragging that inwards. And this is eventually going to fade to brighter white on the right. So extra shadow color on the left, it blends in. Drag that into the middle and leave the far right part of that circle white. So you can do smooth strokes, but I'm kind of doing these sort of textured strokes in there to blend it, but also give it a little bit of that kind of snow texture. Maybe a little gray over here under where that vest is going to be, and also under that scarf, a little bit extra gray there as well. I'm going to paint the scarf next. I'm going to rinse my 4-round brush and load my paint palette in the color Cad Red Deep Hue. You're also welcome to change the color of this. And get that brush all rinsed off. We are still using the number 4 round brush. And I'm going to load it into that red and paint the scarf. Starting over here, remember how this overlaps part of that circle? So I want to take that, and even if I have to take this and overlap that part that I just painted, we want to make sure that that is pretty much, it's obviously overlapping the middle circle, but it's overlapping parts of the top circle. A little bit of white on the brush and blend that in. We will add some decorations to this bandana later, but this white that's kind of gently blending in with the scarf, that's just giving it a little bit of like wrinkle texture. So just little bits of white on the brush and just kind of take that and kind of drag that in a kind of curved direction going inwards. I'm going to let this bandana dry, rinse the brush, and do a little bit of outlining on the bottom of the hat. So grab that raw umber, that really, really dark brown, and right here, I'm just going to outline this little piece right here, especially if we ended up painting over some of that snowman color over the hat. Taking that and outlining that is really just kind of getting that part to be lined and making it look like that hat is overlapping our snowman. And I just kind of dragged some of that darker brown up so it's a little bit shadowy on the bottom of the hat. And take a little bit more of this gray. I'm just going to add a little bit more shadow just under here and rinse. I'm going to grab the dark brown again and do one more outline on the left part of his hat right here on the edge. So now that part, maybe drag in a little bit, that part stands out. I'm going to paint the vest next. So I have light brown and dark brown on my 4 round brush, and I'm just going to outline the shape of the vest and then fill it in solid. I'm going to add a little extra brown here at the bottom and just kind of blend that in. And then same thing over here. So this side of the vest is not as big because he's turned to the side. Same colors. So light brown, dark brown on my brush. And grab a little bit of this darker brown and like right here. Since that color is so similar to the scarf, added a little bit more darker shadow on the edge. Kind of helps that to stand out. And then you can also use that darker color just to kind of outline all of the edges of this. I'm going to rinse the brush again and go back and do some more gray shadowing. So right here, just taking this and extending that a little bit further, here as well. And on the bottom, on the snow area. So I'm going to take this gray and just kind of drag it out towards the left to give that, make it look like the shadow of the snowman, and it's kind of being casted towards the left. And then we can grab more white, kind of add more white into the snow on the right side and do some more blending if needed. Next, I'm going to rinse the brush and load some Cadmium Orange Hue. We're going to do the carrot next. Make sure the top snowball area is dry because we don't want this to smear in with that color. And we're going to start with just orange, and so outline the shape, kind of estimate where that nose was. Remember, it's not center, it's more towards the right. And make sure you leave enough room for those eyes that are just under the hat. So this nose is going to be angling downwards because the snowman is looking just slightly down. And you can certainly change that if you want him to be looking up or straight ahead. So there's the nose, and we can add detail shadowing on this later, but for now I'm just going to leave it solid orange. Load my palette with Mars Black, and we're going to do the eyes and the mouth. So take the round brush and the black. I'm going to do our two eyes. So this one is right under the hat. There's not a lot of room right there. And this one is pretty much level with the other one. It's actually going down slightly at an angle just because of how he's kind of looking. And then our mouth, little dots for the whole mouth. If you want to do a straight mouth like a stick, you can do that instead. And then the little buttons are over here on the right. So they do not have to be perfect circles. They're more like blobs because they're coal. And I'm going to just kind of loosely outline the edge of the vest on both sides with that black. I'm also going to outline the bottom of that hat. I know we outlined earlier with dark brown, but I'm just taking this black. And you may decide that you want to just outline the entire hat. And that might help it to kind of gain its shape a little bit better. If you struggled with the shading and highlighting, you can just outline the entire hat. And the arms. So the arms, black and dark brown, are on my brush. I added a little bit of water on there and kind of loosened that paint a little bit. And if I'm working with a round brush, a lot of times if I'm doing a branch, I'll kind of twist my brush, and that gets that paint right there on the end of the bristles so that I have better control. They're just two basic branch-like arms that are just kind of hanging down. And then over here on the left, I decided to have kind of his opening of the vest. A very small detail that you can decide to leave out, but I'm going to have that ended up being kind of gray. And then this part of the stick kind of overlaps. Next, I'm going to paint the red band that is on his hat, and that is going to be the Cad Red Deep, so that dark red color, cleaned, rinsed off number 4 round brush. And oh, this got cut off just a little bit from the camera, but I'm basically painting a kind of curved area, and that's on the bottom part of that crown part of the hat. So just red on the very, very bottom part of that. And next I'm going to do the little designs on his scarf. So this is titanium white. So you can either use pure titanium white or mix a little bit of red to it. But I'm doing these kind of little teardrop shapes and then little dots on the bottom and top of the scarf to give it that little bandana design. Next, I'm going to take white and do a little highlight on the eyes, just one little dot, both on the right side. That really brings the snowman to life when you do that little highlight. And I'm going to paint a little star on his vest on the right side. This one, I'm really twisting my brush because this is going to be a very tiny star. So I'm just doing a little white star, and then when this dries, I'll go back and paint it yellow. If you want, you can do some of these fine details with the Polska paint pen. So if you have a white paint pen, you can do that, or even a yellow paint pen. You can just paint the star yellow with the paint pen. And while the star is drying, I'll do a little bit more outlining on the hat with the black. A little bit more shadowing in some of the shadowy areas. So you can use black or the dark brown for that. You don't even need to outline it more if you feel like it doesn't need any more outlining. So when the star is dry, you can go ahead and paint it yellow. I'm going to do little white dash patterns on his vest, just right here, little stitch patterns, little dashed lines. And I'm going to make this little opening a little bit brighter so that we can see it. I'm going to add a little bit more shadow detail to the snowman. You can skip this step if you like the way that your snowman looks. You don't have to add more shadow, but I'm going to do a little bit more gray down here. In fact, I added just a teeny bit of the black to my brush with the white to make an even darker gray. So I'm just going in here and adding some darker values, especially towards the very bottom. And then underneath the center snow circle, a little bit more shadowing. And then we can do a little bit more texture work in this as well to kind of make it look a little bit more like snow. So I'm doing these kind of choppy paint strokes and get more white onto my palette. And so there's still like short, kind of angled, rounded, choppy paint strokes using the white and the gray. Gives it that little bit more of that snow texture look. Next, I'm going to outline the little yellow star and add a little bit of shadowing on his nose. So rinsed my number 4 round brush, and I'm going to use the black to kind of loosely outline the outer edge of the star. And then to add the shadowing on the carrot, I just outlined the far left part with black, then reloaded my brush in some orange and kind of dragged that orange and black towards the bottom left part of the carrot and dragged it up in these kind of curved paint strokes to create a little bit of shadow on the far left part of the carrot. Next, I'm going to paint the fence post in. So this is the dark brown, the raw umber. And if you want, you can even grab a little bit of the light brown as well, mix both of those colors in there. But I'm basically just going to paint vertical paint strokes going up vertically in the direction of that post. So it's solid and dark first, and we can add lighter color in there to highlight it later, but just paint it solid. I am adding a little bit of that lighter brown towards the top. I'm not going to concentrate too much of what this top part looks like. It is going at an angle, but it's going to have snow covered in it later, so I'm not going to do too much detail. I am going to add a little bit more black towards the bottom, so it's a little extra shadowy towards the very bottom of that post. I'm actually going to switch to the number 8 long round brush, and this is specifically because it has a very fine point to it and I can do some detail work in here. I could have used this earlier for some of the other detail work on the snowman, but I'm going to use it now to do the wood texture on the post. So I'm going to pinch the bristles together to make sure that point of the bristles that's all gathered right there, and I have this loaded in just titanium white, and I'm only using the end point of this brush. Has a very fine detail end point, and I'm just loosely doing these very light vertical texture lines on the post. That's going to give it that wood grain. Then without rinsing the brush, I'm going to grab my Mars Black and I'm going to start doing the wire, so that little curved line that overlaps the post. And these lines, you want to make sure they're very, very thin. So I'm just going to take this and just kind of paint over that line that I drew earlier. It's going to go behind the snowman. And then it comes back over here on the left. It's kind of a very loosely wavy line. And then it goes over the post and it goes to the right off the edge of the canvas. And then we see the other part over here. And then you can paint the little wires on the little spikes on the wires. So I'm just going to do like little X marks along both sets of wires. And all I'm doing is just painting very, very loose little X's. Next, without rinsing the brush, add a little bit of white on the end of that and just go back over, and so we don't have to cover all of the black, it's kind of highlighting it, or it could just be little frost or snow accumulation on the wire, but either way it still gives it some fun depth on our wire. So I'm going back over the X's with white, and I'll also go over the actual wire part a little bit with this white as well, just towards the top. And I decided to add little white highlights on the right side of the buttons. I didn't do the little highlight thing on the mouth pieces. So then let's do some more detail work on our snowman. I'm going to do a little holly with the color Hooker's Green Hue. This is the only time green shows up in this painting, so you really don't need a lot of green for this. And this is completely optional too. If you don't want to add the little holly, you don't have to. But I'm just taking my 8 round brush, and actually if you mix a little bit of white into that green, it helps it to show up a little bit better because this is kind of a dark area. I'm just doing a very kind of simple little leaf shape that's kind of got the webbed edges like a holly leaf. And then we can do little red berries. The little red berries don't really show up because the band of the hat is already red, but if you mix white into it so it's kind of a light red instead of a dark red, that might help get your berries to stand out a little bit better. next I'm going to load my paint palette with the color Raw Sienna. I'm going to do the rope that the snowman is holding, so some fresh Raw Sienna on the palette, and yellow. So mixing yellow into this light brown color is going to make it more of a golden color. And twist my brush, add a little bit of water in there to kind of loosen that up. And basically, so before we do any of the texture or anything on this rope, we're just going to define the shape of it. So it's an oval that's kind of hanging off of his arm. A little piece of this rope is kind of hanging down. It can touch the ground if you want it to. And before this dries, I'm going to do some of the texture on the rope. So without rinsing the brush, add white to that color. It's going to turn into a lighter color. I kind of twist my brush to get that right there on the end of the bristles. And I'm going to do these little curved marks, but leave a little gap in between. And that's going to create a little bit of that rope texture. So it's going to curve and it's going to go around that shape. And it's okay if these marks go outside of the line that you created for the shape of the rope. And little marks on that piece as well. I'm going to let that dry before I do some of the black outlining work that's going to be on it later. So let's move along and do some more detail work in our painting. I'm going to do the little snow that's piling up over here. Ideally, that post is dry so that this doesn't turn into brown snow. But I'm just stippling little white kind of dots, kind of piling up by the fence post. And then little white dots up here. I almost put a little red cardinal on this post, but decided to just keep it simple and do little snow piling up. If you want to do a little cardinal, you can. I almost also did a little wreath hanging on the post, so if you want to do that, that's a fun detail you can add. I'm going to adjust the snowman's hand to where some of these branches are they're going to be overlapping the rope to kind of make it look like he's holding the rope. So this one right here in the middle is going to overlap. And then we see the other side of that stick coming out the other side of the rope. So you can adjust yours to be different if you want, but that makes it look a little bit more like that rope is on the stick. And I'm going to dry this manually really quick so that I can do the outline work detail on the rope. I'm going to grab my number 8 round brush. This can also be done with a very fine tip black paint pen. And I'm going to use the very end of the bristles and the black to go in here and outline. So all the lighter color parts of the ropes that we painted, I'm just going to go back and I'm outlining all of those with black. These are loosely outlined, meaning that you don't have to outline the entire shape. You can skip parts of it. So you can, like right here, I'm just outlining the bottom part of it. And then maybe right here I end up outlining both sides. And I'm going to add some texture on the end of this rope where it's kind of frayed. So just grab the browns, you can leave the black on the brush, and you're just kind of dragging that outwards to create the texture. Next, I'm going to add little dried grass pieces by our fence post. So we can use the black, the brown. You could use the green, but because it's winter, I'm going to do dormant dry grass. So using the number 8 round brush and just doing little angled lines in there. I love how that looks in the snow. It gives it that really pretty rustic look. And I'm going to do the snowflakes next. So I'll use the 8 round for the snowflakes, the one that has the fine point to it. If you feel more comfortable doing this with a paint pen, you can do it with the paint pen. If you want to do the 4 round brush, you can use the 4 round brush. I found it helpful to look at Google clip art of snowflakes, and you can kind of observe different kinds of snowflake patterns and kind of mimic that, or make up your own snowflakes. So all of these, the base is pretty much like a plus sign with 2 diagonal lines. And then it's really about kind of decorating those lines after that. So this first one, I did little angles on the ends and in the middle of each of those lines. And so I'm just going to do different snowflakes. They're all going to be unique. This one is going to be just a plus sign with no angled lines, but I'm going to decorate the little plus signs with like little oval diamond shapes. So there's going to be little 2 sets of angles pointing inwards. So just have fun, and you can be as complex as you want with these snowflakes, or just do simple snowflakes. I'm going to do some bigger snow pieces. We did little speckled splatter snow earlier, but doing some bigger pieces that gives some more depth in the sky for some up close snow pieces. And then another snowflake up here. Something else we can do is add a little bit of snow, little dust accumulating on top of the carrot. I know that got cut off a little bit from the camera, but there we go. We can do like a little outline or little dots of snow. I didn't want to go too crazy with this because I didn't really want to make it look too busy or mess up some of the detail work that I did, but we can do little pieces, little dots of snow kind of accumulating on top of the hat, on top of the nose, wherever there's kind of a flat surface. Maybe there's snow kind of piling up over here on the right. And I'm going to do some more brown grass pieces on the left just because I love how that looks. So grabbing brown, I can leave the white on my brush, that's fine. So grabbing that brown, a little bit of water in there to loosen that up. And I'm just using the end of the bristles, maybe a little bit of black to kind of darken it. Just give that a little bit more grass texture in the lower left part. Maybe there's a little bit of shadow on the ground under the rope. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that brown, maybe grab some white, kind of blend that in a little bit more. And that is the conclusion of how to paint Cowboy Snowman. I did add another snowflake and a few more little snow dots off camera, which is something that you can do too if you decide that you want to add more to it. That is it. This is the conclusion. Hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching and thanks for painting with me.